Hello YouTube. Here's the video that was promised as far as a predictions video on AEW Double or Nothing 2025. Now, I actually recorded this already once in its entirety all the way through and accidentally deleted the file. So now I'm kicking myself, but at the same time, we're going to do this again, and I'm going to do it a lot faster this time. So here's what it's going to be. I'm going to go through all 10 matches. That's way too many matches. But WWE generally has too few matches. There is a happy medium in between, but 10 is too much. No matter how you want to play this, it's too much. But we're going to go through them real quick, and I'm going to tell you who I think is going to win. But then at the same time, in some cases, I'll tell you what my preference would be or what my fantasy booking would be if it was up to me. And it really comes down to, in a lot of cases, when I'm going to go into it, is going to be where do you put your faith in Tony Khan in terms of doing the right thing in terms of business, to borrow the cliche, best for business, versus an investment that he's made in a certain direction that he likes to do a lot of his storylines and booking, or lack thereof. So we're going to get into these here. We'll go through them, and then I'll drop this video on the morning of the pay-per-view, and we'll see how I do. Don't expect too many of these all the time, but in this case, since I figured this would be an interesting pay-per-view, especially with a couple of the potential pivot points heading into All In, I figured this would be a good opportunity. For me, as far as I'm concerned, this pay-per-view is kind of the kickoff heading towards All In, and we'll see how they want to treat it. By the time this pay-per-view runs, it's going to be 48 days left before the actual All-In pay-per-view happens in July. So just under 7 weeks. So to me, whatever you do coming out of this is going to be the setup in order to get you where you want to go. So you're going to have to be, I would tread very carefully if I was Tony Khan as far as the decisions made here. But let's get into it. I'm going to put the different graphics up as I go through the matches. Keep it very straightforward here, and then we'll see how we do on this one. First one is the buy-in. Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford taking on Anna Jay and Harley Cameron. Truth be told, I've actually kind of enjoyed the way they decided to do this. I really do like the pairing of Anna Jay and Harley Cameron. They're kind of, more comedic and kind of fun in that regard. And I actually like Penelope Ford's pairing with Megan Bayne. I think it's actually been mutually beneficial. I think both of them actually play off each other pretty well. However, that said, I've been kind of hot and cold in terms of the way they've presented Megan Bayne. I think they did a very good job establishing her when she returned as kind of this dominant monster heel. But at the same time, you built her up almost too quickly, got her into a title match with Tony Storm. She loses the match after dominating the majority of the offense, but she loses on a roll-up and then doesn't immediately start kicking down doors trying to get a return title match. Instead, she goes back to beating up a bunch of jobbers, or at least presented as jobbers, local talent, enhancement talent. So you have her do that, and then she winds up in this, buy-in match with Anna Jay and Harley Cameron. I don't mind it in a vacuum, but at the same time, there's different times where somebody will lose one of these matches and then they don't immediately demand a rematch or want a rematch or just randomly attack people until they get a rematch. There's ways to play this so that it makes sense. Preferably, you shouldn't have put her in that position in the first place to get into a title match that she was going to lose, just to have her not seem to care about it. And the not caring about it is the bigger problem than the losing. I'm not one of those people who says everybody should get a title or else they're being buried. That's not true. There are ways to do this where you don't set the character up to fail and then kind of have them not care about it. And that's the presentation that you do. So regardless, this should be a fun enough match for what it is. It is in the buy-in, so it's not high stakes or anything, but you easily could have left this off the card. You could put something else as the buy-in match and have this be on the television show. It would have been perfectly fine there, but regardless, it'll be fine. I'm going to say Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford for no other reason than they need to kind of keep Megan Bayne's momentum going. But if you want to sell me on Anna Jay or Harley Cameron, I could see it, but I don't see where you go with it from there. So like I said, kind of to keep protecting Megan Bayne going forward, I would kind of have her win. Or if you're going to have them lose, then Penelope Ford probably eats the pin. Next up here, we got a trios match, not involving the Ops, because obviously they're in the Anarchy in the Arena match. But I kind of don't see a reason to have a trios match if it doesn't involve the trios champions on this kind of a card. That's going to be the case in a couple of these. This would actually be a really good television match for me. But regardless, this is the Paragon taking on the Don Callis family. So what I believe is going to happen here, and what I'm hoping is going to happen here, is the Don Callis family wins. But what I really want to have happen, specifically, is I want to have one of the members of the Don Callis family end up pinning Adam Cole. Reason being, this trios match is kind of meaningless in the grand scheme of things. But if you're going to do it, if you're going to put it in this card, I want some consequence coming out of it. I would like one of them to pin Adam Cole, which could then lead into them having, a title shot here coming up and kind of set that up. And that allows you then to at least kind of have a little bit of a spinoff. And you could pick any of the guys on the Don Callis family side. Kyle Fletcher would be an interesting one because he's a guy who, the way I look at it, is kind of in a position where he's getting close to where you may want to consider putting him up for like a secondary championship to kind of establish him even further, his character. Because a lot of the stuff he's been doing has been really great. At some point, I do want to see him start rounding into either the International Championship or the TNT Championship, something. So that's a way for you to have this match. The match itself should be pretty good, but then have something come out of this match that leads you into a pay-per-view or leads you into the next couple of shows, or have some kind of a feud spin out of it. Something that makes the match more than just another nice match on the card. So we'll go with the Don Callis family with the caveat and the hope that it leads into some kind of a spin-off from there. Speaking of hoping that there is some kind of a spin-off here, we've got a tag team match between Nigel McInness and Daniel Garcia taking on FTR. So my prediction on this is that FTR wins. They kind of need momentum continuing with the whole heel turn and kind of what they're doing with Stokely Hathaway. That's what they need. What I would like to see is I want to see one of Nigel or Daniel Garcia turn heel and turn on their partner and help FTR win this match, and then in turn join FTR. The logical choice here is to have Daniel Garcia be that guy. Have him become part of this heel faction and in turn, help them beat up Nigel McInness, do a spike pile driver, something that results in adding additional heel heat on Daniel Garcia. Because as a babyface, he's kind of generic. He tries to do kind of the scrappy thing, but at the same time, there's more mileage in him adding some more personality into it. I kind of like what FTR is doing with their whole heel persona now, just being jerks. And I think Daniel could benefit from that if you want to go that route. Nigel turning on Daniel Garcia would also be kind of funny, but at the same time, he's not going to be a full-time wrestler anymore. He's still got the commentary thing, but he's a heel commentator, so maybe you kind of go that route. Either way, I'd be okay with it, but I kind of want to see one of those guys turn heel and cost the match while FTR wins. Next up here is a stretcher match between Mark Briscoe and Ricochet. I had a whole breakdown and explanation of why I want it, but look, I'll do the short version. The short version is this match has no business being on this card. I have no issue with it, but we've already got a gimmick match in Anarchy in the Arena. And I think the match should be a lot of fun. I think Mark Briscoe's great, and Ricochet has been very enjoyable in this persona that we're getting right now. So the reality is, I like both these guys in kind of this role here, but this match is just kind of filler on this card. And that doesn't mean the match is going to be bad. I don't think it's going to be bad at all. But we've got 10 matches. We did not need 10 matches. This would have been awesome match to have on a television show. Put this on Dynamite or put this on Collision and have it be a main event or have it be a really fun match that the crowd could get into. It'd be really enjoyable. The crowd likes to boo Ricochet, and I'm enjoying his character a lot more as kind of this goofy heel, but who can still get things done in the ring. Very good. And I think these guys will do a great job kind of putting a match together here. But I think in this case, I would pick Mark Briscoe for no other reason than he needs a couple of wins. You don't want to have him lose all the time because then when somebody beats him, it becomes less significant. Ricochet can totally need a loss here, and I think the crowd would enjoy him getting put into a stretcher and getting dragged off. So I would say put Mark Briscoe over for no other reason than I think it's more beneficial to have him not rack up losses all the time. Ricochet can totally afford it, and he can still come back and be really annoying, hit somebody with a pair of scissors, and he'll be right back to where he was without any consequences. Next up, the AEW Continental Championship with Okada taking on Speedball Bayley. Okada wins. There's really no reason to have a title change here. Again, given the amount of stuff going on in this card, it would just be lost in the shuffle. But I think you can have a lot of fun with this match. I think the money is still on the Okada-Kenny Omega rematch that you teased. I think you do it at some point. And I feel like Okada should lose the Continental Championship in a scenario where it becomes the person who's going to get it, get something for it. I feel like you could do a couple different things that would work really well, but I just feel like this isn't the time. This is one of those matchups where I think the match will be really good, but I feel like Okada cheats in some way, hits a low blow, does something that ends up winning him the match, but Speedball Bayley still has a very competitive match. I think that's kind of the way you play this, and then you move on. This is kind of a placeholder match until you get to something else for Okada or Bayley. Next up here, we got Anarchy in the Arena. So this is going to be one of the big matches, kind of showcase of the card. We've got Kenny Omega, Willow Nightingale, Swerve Strickland, and the Ops. So, the Trios champions are not in the Trios match, but they're involved in this multi-person match. And we got the Death Riders and the Young Bucks on the other side of it. This should be a lot of fun. The crowd should be able to enjoy this. I don't know where you're going to put this on the card. We know that Hangman and Osprey is going to be the main event, so you've got that out of there. So where I'm thinking on this one is I think this is a scenario where since this isn't the main event, I think you can have the Death Riders win this match. Because it won't necessarily, quote unquote, ruin the pay-per-view, because the Death Riders going on top at the end of the pay-per-view really isn't working for folks. At this point, a lot of people are ready for the Death Riders thing to be over, and I understand that. But I think you can get away with it here because, in this case, you're going to have a main event that I still think will leave people happy going home. I think if this match is entertaining, then you can get away with the Death Riders and Young Bucks winning. What I want, though, coming out of this, with all these people involved, I need some spin-off matches off of this. If you're going to go through this trouble, you're going to do all this, I need there to be some kind of a combination therein where you get some spin-off matches that are going to appear on either Dynamite, Collision or on a pay-per-view in between. I don't remember if the schedule has any pay-per-views between this and All In. You've got almost 7 weeks, so I think you're probably going to have something in between. I would make sure that you've got some stuff that you can use on there. So I'm going to pick the Death Riders and Young Bucks just because they can get away with it here, and I think the match itself should be entertaining and a good crowd pleaser. Next up, AEW World Tag Team Championships, the Hurt Syndicate taking on the Sons of Texas. Every part of me wants to pick the Sons of Texas because if MJF had joined them maybe a month ago or a month and a half ago, I would 100% have MJF somehow cost the Hurt Syndicate, which would lead to Bobby Lashley getting furious of him and chasing him around the arena. That would be very funny. But I think it's too soon. This association just started. They're eventually going to break up. Somebody's going to betray somebody. But I feel like it's literally just happened, and I feel like it's too soon for that. The Sons of Texas, I think it'll have a good match. I think Sammy Guevara will jump off something high, do a big spot. I think Dustin Rhodes is always solid in all occasions, and I think it'll be very good from that perspective. But the Hurt Syndicate retains just because right now is not the right time to try to do anything crazy with it. I think you're going to have it continue because the MJF storyline is eventually going to lead into something. I do think MJF eventually is the cause of the tag team championships being lost, but I don't feel like this is the time where you're going to do it. All right, we're up to the AEW Women's World Championship. Timeless Toni Storm taking on Mina Shirakawa. So, Timeless Toni Storm retains. Why? Because there's really no reason to do this title change. The whole Eliminator thing is silly. Beating the champion twice in a row is really dumb. It hasn't happened, so it's kind of a situation where you're not going to do it logically. Mina just became officially an AEW signee, which is great for her, but then I hate that we're keep forcing the new person into a title match that they're going to lose. And it just seems silly. However, so I'm picking Timeless Toni Storm. This is where kind of the fantasy booking element of it kicks in. This is where I guess it depends on what the situation is. Obviously, the speculation is that Mariah May, her contract's going to run out, and everybody already has her figured going to WWE. I think the likelihood is pretty high. I think it's close to 100% that she's going to go to WWE. If that is so, whether it's true or not, though, it doesn't matter here. If she's still under contract, and I'm Tony Khan, then I'm picking up the phone and I'm talking and I'm having a conversation because if you're still under contract and I can still book you for things, then I would have her come down here and I would have her be the cause of Toni Storm retaining. And I would then spin off her and Mina Shirakawa because obviously they have history and they're friends and everything else. If Mariah May is going to be leaving AEW to go to WWE and she's still got time left on her contract, even if this is the last thing she does, I think a mini feud between those two would make all the sense in the world because if Mina's not going to win this match, which I don't think she is, I think you're pretty much locked in Toni Storm as one of the two that's going to All In, then I think you have that spinoff. They have a storyline-based feud that you play off of with Mariah May eventually losing, and then Mina Shirakawa is established in AEW. She can go on to do her thing, and if Mariah May is going to WWE, then she can be off. We wish her the best in her future endeavors. All good. Her contract runs out, she goes to WWE and does whatever. That's a way that you kind of take advantage. Don't let the ingredients spoil. If you got somebody under contract and they can still do something for you, then get some mileage out of it. Get some value out of the remaining time they have, if that's what it's going to be. Or if she ends up resigning, then great. Then you can do other things after that. But at the bare minimum, get one more thing out of Mariah May if her contract's going to run out. All right, speaking of the other half of All In, you've got the women's tournament final for the Owen Hart Foundation tournament, and you've got Mercedes Moné taking on Jamie Hayter. So this is one of the two that I talked about where it depends on whether you have faith in Tony Khan doing the right thing or going with what he's invested in. In this case, Mercedes is the one he's invested a ton of money into. She hasn't lost a single match in AEW. She's lost matches elsewhere, but she hasn't lost in AEW at all. So what it comes down to is, do you just keep rolling through to have her go into a match with Toni Storm? My prediction is that I don't trust Tony Khan's judgment here. Even though you kind of left the door open a little bit, and I'll get to that here in a second. I'm going to predict Mercedes just because Tony Khan's booking of her has worried me. She's been good in terms of in-ring. I haven't had any issue with what Mercedes done in the ring. But as far as a character, she really hasn't had one. Outside of her run with Harley Cameron, where it's more than kind of for comedy and fun and everything, we've never really gotten out of the blocks with any kind of a story with Mercedes. She just kind of comes out there. She does the whole CEO gimmick. She gives the same kind of promos where she delivers the same lines, gives a couple of t-shirt slogans, and then moves on about her business. In the ring, she gets her job done. No issue there. A lot of good matches have come out of this association. But she's already the TBS champion. She's got a lot of titles that she prances around with. There's really no story with her and Tony other than Toni Storm can be entertaining with a lot of different people. You could do a lot of different things as far as, interviews and Toni Storm saying wacky things and Mercedes trying to play off of it. So you could have a lot of fun if you want to, in a 6 or 7 week period leading into the big show. So I don't think there's any concern about being able to put together something with those two paired up. And the match itself should be very good. But I think the story, if you're going to go with the storyline perspective, the move is to have Jamie Hayter win. My prediction is Mercedes because I lack the confidence in Tony to do the right thing here. But the correct move for me is to have Jamie Hayter win because you've got the history with her and Toni Storm. When she got on the shelf, she touched on it. She alluded to it in the Go Home promo that she talked about relevancy, that she talked about inadvertently, she's talking about needing redemption to prove that coming back was worthwhile. That's something you can play off of. And her and Toni Storm have got the history because Toni Storm was the recipient, the beneficiary of Jamie Hayter being put on the shelf in the match where she lost the title. So you've got that you can draw from. Even though the characters are different, you can have a lot of fun with that. And also, you could have Jamie Hayter turn heel and keep Toni Storm as the babyface leading into it. So you could do that between now and then in order to establish that line in the sand. So you can do all those things. And then, if you were going to go that route, my fantasy booking, I would have Athena be part of the reason that Mercedes loses. By doing that, you have created 2 spin-off feuds. You got the title program with Jamie Hayter and Toni Storm that makes all the sense in the world. Lots of storyline that you can pull from. Lots of things you can do with that. And then on the other hand, you set up a Mercedes Moné and Athena rematch. You could do a title versus title. There's a lot of things you can do with that. And now you've got 2 matches set up instead of just 1. That to me is the play because then you're still getting value out of Mercedes. You're still getting tons of value, but then you're also getting some value out of Jamie Hayter and setting up a potentially interesting result at All In. All right, last match here. The main event is the men's tournament final in the Owen Hart Foundation, and we've got Will Osprey and Hangman Adam Page. In the Go Home promo, they did a great job establishing. So they've done a couple of things in the last couple of promos they've done. They've talked about Will Osprey talking about ascension versus Hangman's story of redemption. So again, we're back to what level of confidence do you have in Tony Khan in making the business choice here? For me, the business choice is Hangman. Because you've got a story arc. You've got a whole narrative here with his time in AEW from the beginning to right now. All these things can lead into that match. And if he becomes the guy and he goes in, him and Jon Moxley, there's a lot of things you can do with the back and forth. You can work on the dismantlement of the Death Riders, the story of that dismantlement leading to Jon Moxley, maybe with Marina Shafir as the last person standing, facing him off at All In. There's a story there that you can play between now and then as that redemption. That can be the end of the redemption arc. That's the Hangman, quote unquote, finishing his story thing. That right there is a great way to go about it. On the other side, you got Will Osprey. He's kind of the one that everybody looks at who's going to be AEW champion. He's going to be AEW champion at some point. It could even be before the end of this year. The point is, though, you can do both things here. If you go the Hangman route, you can still have him become the champion and the Death Riders side of the story. And then Will Osprey can still win this by World's End or whatever you want to do. And still, within the calendar year, you still get an Osprey world title run, however you want to play it. And then you can have matches with MJF. You can have matches with Hangman. You can have matches with Kenny Omega. There's lots of stuff you can do. That, to me, serves 2 masters. But again, we're back to what does Tony Khan see here? Does he go with the obvious? Osprey is the obvious. He can be, your torchbearer here going forward, going from All In forward. And there are matches you can do that. With the Moxley thing, you can make it work. But if you choose to do it the other way, I think there's more options. And then you can have Osprey spin off into something. Again, similar to what we talked about with the Jamie Hayter Mercedes thing. You could have Kyle Fletcher mess about in the Osprey thing. You could have somebody else be involved and kind of indirectly cost Osprey. Or you can have Hangman win it straight up. I like the idea of somehow somebody getting involved because at least it gives Osprey a reason not to immediately be focused back in on that. That's kind of the direction that I would go if it was up to me. But it leaves me this way. My brain says Osprey just because of who I know is the booker. My preference would be Hangman because I think the storyline possibilities are much richer. That's the way that I would go if it was up to me. So the question becomes, can Tony Khan look past the obvious and think about the possibilities and the options? So in all of these cases, we're talking about options. There's a couple of these matches that matter more than all the rest of them. And the matches that matter more can potentially have more options. This match and the Jamie Hayter Mercedes match, if you go the less obvious route, it opens up a whole potential group of options that give you some more matches and some more opportunities for TV shows and pay-per-views going forward to All In and then past All In. All right, so that's it. My second attempt. Hopefully this time it gets through. If you actually see the video or hear the video, then we're good. We're managed. So regardless, more videos coming up on the channel. I'm not going to do prediction videos and stuff all the time. We'll see how I did. Maybe I got them all wrong. Maybe I got a couple of them right. We'll see how it goes. The rest of them will be wrestling card related videos for the most part. We'll look into some of the other things. I'll start incorporating some of the WWE stuff in as well, because I know there's a lot of stuff the Fanatics/Tops is going to be doing with that license. So we'll definitely incorporate some elements of that. There will be some pickups coming down the road here, and also some other potential boxes that'll get opened, but we'll probably be a couple of months away from some of those. With all that said, that's it for this one. Happy to get any thoughts you might have on any of these predictions. If you've got your own predictions, happy to hear it. Otherwise, like if you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much, and we'll catch you in the next one.